Hey everyone, welcome to our first episode of the IPF Community Podcast. My name is Natalie and I'm joined here today with my guest Kimora.
Hi.
Today we will be talking about how COVID-19 and the lockdown of the pandemic affected our mental health as students. So let's jump right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm in my final year of criminology at York University.
Nice.
And then after post-grad, I'm looking to go into a law firm, either as like a legal assistant or like a secretary.
Okay, nice. Yeah, a little bit about, I'm also in my final semester doing my social service work diploma as well as degree. And I had when I started school, the pandemic wasn't on, but I had a shift, and that was 2 years into my diploma for child and youth care. How about you?
So mine was my fourth year. My fourth year going end of season, so like I had like a month left before school, before COVID hit. So then all my exams got pushed to online, or like they became like just essays.
Okay, so this was like your last semester when you got into like the pandemic?
Yeah, so like around April is when my school like kind of shut down.
Oh, okay. And do you want to talk more about your experience, like going from in-person to online, and how that must have been stressful too, considering you were in your final semester?
Yeah, so when school shut down, I was actually visiting my mom. I'm from Windsor, so I was visiting my mom at the time. So when school shut down, I got an email saying that, and then it was kind of like last minute, so like it was like a scramble for like teachers trying to figure out what to do, since we couldn't write online, and the exams would be too long to do online versus in person. So it was kind of like a big shift of figuring out last minute assignments and trying to get them handed in when you already prepared for something that was given to you like months prior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I had placement as well, and they cut our placement. The first thing to go was our placement. They said we'll give you your hours because we couldn't go in person anymore. And our school became completely online, and it was pretty confusing at first because it was hard to like reach profs, and profs obviously had no idea what was going on as well because COVID-19 was a new thing for everyone.
Yeah.
But I just remember being stressed because I had to find a third year placement and everything was obviously shut down, and that was what was going on in my head, and I was like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to do that now. And I feel like it's so much easier to contact people in person, or like even have your profs and your classmates like reach out to you in person. Did you find that as well?
So a lot of my profs they did answer in a reasonable time, but I had presentations due at that time too, so it was kind of difficult of how are we going to present when I'm not even in person. So trying to like film myself, and then also like the length of the like presentations were too long to be sent. So it's kind of like having to break them down in mini pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you like when you started off in like online? What did you find that was completely different than when it was like in person?
I feel like teaching. It was kind of like we didn't really have PowerPoint, so like in person we had PowerPoints. And then I feel like I'm a visual learner, so most of the time it was just talking versus me seeing what's actually being said. And then even questions, like when you're in the chat, a lot of the times they don't see what you're asking versus if I'm raising my hand. Or sometimes they have like the function where you can raise your hand, but sometimes because they have their screen on, they also don't see that. Yeah. So you're trying to have to like unmute yourself and interrupt the class.
Oh, true. Yeah, for sure. I just remember like I was like, there were no classes being held because no one had no idea what was going on, and I was like just trying to get through my semester, and like one of like my electives, documentary, had this huge paper due, and I was like, I don't think I could. It was very hard for me to sit in one place in that one room that I've been stuck in for like a whole month to like submit a paper online, and that was the first time I was like, this is so hard to do. Like online school, I found like I felt like it was something that I was pressured into doing, versus of me actually wanting to get good marks, which was like complete opposite of how it was in February. And I remember I didn't turn in my paper for documentary, and that was like the first time I had never handed in something And I just remember being like, I just cannot do this because online is very stressful. Even if a prof comes in that teaches a concept, I'm not listening to her. I'm on my phone or I'm talking to someone else because like I can mute them in the background and that it's so easy to do, but I'm not retaining any information. And that scared me because I was like school was such a big factor in my life and just it seemed like such a background thing when COVID started. Like how do you feel about that? Like for you, like when you went into online school, did you find it hard when it came to like focusing on something? For focus, for example.
Me, because I didn't get out of my bed. I know a lot of my friends had like offices, so they would like go to their office, but I would literally stay in my bed. Mm-hmm. It was more comfortable, and also like the camera. Like I felt like because a lot of my profs didn't require the camera on. Like I felt like I didn't have to be physically there, and I could just go on about my day and just have like the camera on or have my like name shown and just get participation that way, just being present like there, but they don't know what I'm doing because my camera's off.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's no accountability. I feel like you could just do anything and just get away with it. That's how I felt like that's how things were going. And I had taken a break before going back into school, so this was very important to me. And then it suddenly became less important and the pandemic became more important. And my mental health was like something that I really wanted to focus on because it was getting really bad. How would you say like your mental health was at that point of time? And like was school a factor as well?
School was a little bit of a factor. Like I'm a homebody by choice, but when you're kind of forced to be at home and not going outside because you don't want to, but rather because you can't, that was kind of a big thing. And also like group work was a big thing for me because group work when you're in a classroom, the teacher kind of can see like who's participating. Mm-hmm. But when you're like in like a group, like little breakout room, it's kind of like everybody just has the cameras off, no one's talking. You ask questions, just people are just sitting there.
Yeah, true. I know it's so awkward because I remember like no one would say anything and the prof doesn't say anything either, and I feel like I was like, should I just say something just because like to break the silence because it was just so awkward and it's like no one can do anything about it, especially when you don't have your cameras on and they don't force you to turn it on. I think that's when it feels like the prof is just talking to a wall and we're just there because we have to be there. But I honestly, because I finished my diploma program in 2021 and then I got into my degree program right away, so that was like in September, and it was online again. It was like a hybrid, but it was mostly online, and then we went back to complete online in 2022 because of the rise of cases. And I remember I was like sleeping in bed and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna listen to my prof. And like I fell asleep and then I was like, I woke up and I was like, oh, the class is over. But I was like, oh, I guess it's like I was like, either way, it's not like I would be listening even if I was sitting in my chair. Like I would not be retaining any information, and that became so repetitive. Like I kept doing that again and again and again. And when it came to like our papers and assignments and things like that, I was teaching myself. I was teaching everything myself because I was like, I'm not listening to the prof. And it wasn't the prof's fault either, because however engaging the class was, it's just very hard to like sit in one place where no one is like looking at you, especially because when you're in a classroom, I feel like that's where you're supposed to be. Everyone's there for like single purpose, but when you're in a virtual class, it's like so much harder to do that. And I honestly feel like going into like in person now, it's gotten a lot easier. Commute is something that I don't love, and it's gotten way harder to commute places now. But I do find it easier to be like in person when the prof is talking, like even during the class, even if it's like a 7 p.m. class. Like, how do you feel about that?
I'm in the middle, so I obviously moved. So like I used to live like not on campus, but like in the village. Anyone knows what that is. So the Wi-Fi there was difficult because my Wi-Fi, there's like 5 of us in the house, so like the Wi-Fi wasn't good at all. So sometimes like I would like get kicked out the class and have to come back in, or like it wouldn't let me in general. So like I had to email my prof like, sorry, it can't go. But I did like it in terms of, I do like the self-taught aspect and how a lot of my profs made like assignments due on your own time. So like I didn't have a deadline. If I wanted to hand it in at the end of the semester, then I could do so. But also like exams, there was like, you had to give yourself extra time to save it, upload it, or like they had like a specific time where in class, like yeah, you may have like an hour, but like I could like still take a little few minutes, go hand it in versus it would shut down like right when that time would come. So like if I didn't write anything, then like the computer would like shut down, and like that would be like whatever I wrote was what I was handing in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because for me, in 2020 is when I went back home to the Middle East to be with my parents, because like the whole pandemic thing didn't seem to like go, and I was like, why not just be with my parents? So I did school from there, so I had to wake up like 3 a.m. because class was at 9 a.m. here. And that was not easy at all, and like especially when it had to be a group assignment, I was like up at 2 a.m. doing an assignment with them, and like it was hard to get a group together at all because it was virtual, and I did not know them, so it like to be up at 2 a.m. and then no one answering you, and I'm just like, when is this due and what is happening? It was so confusing, and I feel like a lot of people did go back home because you were paying the same amount of fees over here, so it did make more sense to just be back home in the comfort of your own home to like do school, which I think was a big advantage because I had not been back in 4 years, and that was amazing. So I was able to be with my parents, but then schooling was like a big thing that I was like, I have to still focus on this, and even though it's long distance, so I definitely think there was an impact. But let's switch gears a bit. Now I know maybe a year into the pandemic, schools were allowing fall return as long as you were vaccinated. Did that impact you at all, or did it add on any stress mentally to get vaccinated to attend school?
At first I didn't want to, just because like there's so much going on social media, and like it looks scary, and then there's people getting sick, and then they were talking about like chances of like having kids, and like if you are pregnant, or like other social factors that could affect you. So at first I was like, no. And also how a vaccine could be made so quickly, and then they're just like, yeah, it's safe for you. Then I kind of had no choice because track, I also do track, so that was like, if you don't get it, you can't do track either, and that's like a whole part of my life.
Right.
So that was like, I basically had no choice. And then also my work, they were requiring it as well. So then it was kind of like, I can't go to school, I can't do track, I can't go work. So I kind of have like no life at that point if I don't get it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just had to, hopefully, the best works out when, yes, I do have it. I have 2. I'm not getting no more than that.
Yeah, no, I feel you. For me, like I was back home when the vaccines came out, and I really wanted to get Pfizer because I was like, I don't know if, because the ones that were bought in the Middle East or India were like their own companies, and I wasn't sure if Canada was going to allow that because for some reason everyone was being very stringent on what vaccine you're getting. So I was like, I'm going to wait for the Pfizer vaccine because I really need that one to get into Canada, even though I was a citizen. Like, I don't know why that was playing on my mind. And like back home, if you didn't have the vaccine, you couldn't go anywhere. You weren't allowed to restaurants, you weren't allowed to malls. I was basically a person stuck at home because I was like, I'm waiting for Pfizer. That's the only one I'm taking. Finally got that one. I got my vaccine done. Everything was great. I got to Canada, and no one looks at it in the airport. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess whatever. But I was like, okay, sure, like restaurants are looking into it, so I guess it's a good thing I did get it. Because even I was a bit hesitant at first. I was like, I'm not sure if I want to get it. I had not gotten COVID at that point of time as well, so I was still very like, it's fine, even if I do get it, I'm going to be okay. But then I think it really worked because like whatever job I applied to, I needed a vaccine. School really required a vaccine. Like that was like, you needed a vaccine passport to enter the campus. Like that was like the only way you wouldn't if you have an allergy or religion exempt, and that was I didn't have either. So I was like, thank God I got my 2 shots, and I did not want to get more than that because like the after effects were really bad for me, and I did not want to go through with it again. So yeah, for sure, I definitely feel like there was a lot of pressure, and I feel like everyone was forced to get it. Like no one in I feel like if I think about it back then, for me in my mind, it's like, yeah, I do have to get it because everyone else is getting it. If I don't get it, then I might get COVID, and that's going to be bad. Or if I don't get it, then I won't be allowed places. But when I think about it, I'm just like, why were we all forced into that decision without any like proper facts into it? And I think I like information, and it's not like I think vaccines are important, but it was like COVID came all of a sudden. The pandemic, isolation, the lockdown things, all these new terms, all these new things were happening to us, and the vaccine was just brought onto us, which was also very stressful. But yeah, for sure, I definitely think that like now, like no one requires us to show it at all, which
Right.
is such a change from like last year itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, when I think about it, it's like so insane to me, because I was like, last year we were like, everyone was making us see the vaccine, and now like no one is. So like, how do you think that like the vaccine in any way, if you were given a choice, you would have like not taken it, or you just took it because you wanted to get out there, especially for school?
I definitely took it so I could be able to participate in the events that I do partake in. If I had the option not to get it and still be able to like engage with like school and track, I probably wouldn't have gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I got the Moderna, but that was because I knew other people who got it, and that's like only people I knew who had it. So then I got it because of that. So that was like the safest choice for myself.
Right.
But I definitely think I wouldn't have gotten it, especially now, because I feel like it was a big thing because COVID was so big, but now because COVID slowed down, it's still like, why did we need it at that time? Because people were still getting COVID even when they had it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just beneficial to that person, like you might have got it like not as serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was like a public like thing, like, oh, get COVID to protect other people. No, it was like personal. Like I feel like that should have been a personal choice. Like if I get COVID, then
Yeah.
I'll just like take what it comes with.
Right.
Versus
Yeah.
why am I being forced in something, like if I get it, I get it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Because I've never taken a flu shot.
Yeah.
Like, because back home we don't have those. So like
Mhm.
when I came here, like I was like, oh, if I get the flu, I get the flu.
Yeah.
Like that would build my immunity. That was what,
Mhm.
like I take vaccines, and I've taken all my vaccines that are required.
Yeah.
But I just felt like this was like so scary, because I remember doing my placement at like an adult high school for kids with disabilities, and they either had autism or Down syndrome, and they had no idea what COVID was or what was going on, and
Yeah.
like some of them weren't even wearing masks, but we had to wear like our whole PPE attire
Mhm.
because we had to be careful completely, because like at that point of time we were still in lockdown, vaccines were not come out, so no one had like a solution to what was going on. And it was just so strange to me, because like I was like, is vaccines our only solution? Because like Canada wasn't opening up. I feel like everywhere in the world,
Yeah.
like the world was opening up, but Canada still it's like tend to be in a lockdown.
Mhm.
And it was like, for me, like what was going through my head was like, I need my placement hours, I need to graduate, I have all these questions, I have not been back to my campus since COVID hit, and I still haven't been back.
Right.
And it's just like it's like when you think about it, it's like something that just came out of nowhere, and I think we're still getting the repercussions even when it comes to school. But do you think there are any advantages to like having online school now that you've been in it for a long time and maybe you're still in it?
For me personally, like I said, like being able to self-teach myself throughout my courses, and then also I feel like a lot of people in my class said like they're not vocal or like they're not loud talkers. So being able to talk in a space where you don't feel like all eyes are on you because the cameras are off, so you don't people are probably not listening to you anyway. So like being able to be vocal and like get the participation marks without feeling like you're the center of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I prefer assignments rather than exams. So I haven't had many exams online. I had like when COVID first hit, that was kind of like what they chose, like last minute. But now like I have like more assignments, so I feel like I do like it in a way, and like I would prefer online classes. But like I like a mixture. So right now I have like a mixture of online and in person. So I think not fully online, but if I could go to class sometimes and then online other days,
Mm-hmm.
and also like work. I didn't feel like I had to rush from like class to work. I could like, or like if I was on the way to work, because sometimes they would schedule me. Oh no, they would schedule me sometimes when I had work or when I had class, so like I could listen to class as I would go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of beneficial as well.
Yeah, I know, because my brother was like, he started his job,
Mm-hmm.
like his full-time grown-up job, like
Yeah.
in 2021, and he was like, it was obviously like at home, and
Yeah.
he was like, I can't imagine like getting ready to go out to work every day. And I was like, that's so true. I can't imagine going to school every day or going to work every day. Like being virtual online, like work from home is just something that I feel like we're all going to be in it now for some time now at least.
Yeah.
And I think it's beneficial because you don't have to commute, which is great.
Yeah.
Especially if you're living like a far off distance. Like
Mhm.
if you have a family, for example, I know it's hard, especially when you have little kids, but I think it makes it easier to like be with your family or have a routine, or maybe if you want to go to the gym or like things like that. I feel like it's gotten a lot easier to do hybrid than it is to like go to an actual place, because you have to like dress up and do all these things, and then you're like coming back home and it's like your whole day is spent in either school or work. And I feel like now we're able to do a bit more because it's like virtually. And I think it's also nice like when profs are like, they accommodate you and they're like, yeah, okay, fine, we can do this virtually, or this exam can be done virtually. And I think that's also been something that's so amazing, because I don't think that would have happened if we were put into online school. So I definitely think there have been advantages. I definitely know that focus is something that I don't think I could ever do when it comes to online school. Like that is just one thing that I just know, because I would feel like I'm like in this space and I'm like, I'm not listening to anything you are saying. Like I would, and it's so easy to pick up your phone. It's so easy to pick up your phone, be on mute. It's so easy to be like, oh, I'm having internet issues. Like I cannot respond to this question right now. Like it's like, oh, I cannot like turn on my video. So it's like you're this person who can just like get whatever you want without actually being over there. And we do pay a lot for school. So I feel like that in that back of my head, I was like, I should really be getting to know like basic things. I should like really be studying. But it was just so hard. But yeah, I definitely feel like hybrid is such a good option. Like now that I'm graduating and I'm just like, I have like all in-person classes. I'm like, I wish like a few classes were hybrid. Like it makes everything so much easier just to be on campus, even if it's 2 times a day and then like 2 times a week, sorry. And then like you're back home, like even because I work and then I have another job as well and I volunteer. It's just so much easier to like be home to do these things sometimes. But yeah, I definitely think there were advantages. What do you think was like the biggest disadvantage when it came to like online school?
Well, one personally, I had just bought a MacBook around that time, and all my classes were on Zoom, and I didn't know Zoom didn't work on Safari.
Oh, I had no idea.
No, so like I was in my classes, and I'm like, why can't I hear none of my profs? So then like I looked it up, and like they have to download Firefox. So like I was like a month, 2 months just in class not listening, like hearing nothing. I'm literally like typing in the chat, like trying to answer. I'm like, I can't hear you, like. And then I finally discovered like, oh, I have to download Firefox and then go from Zoom that way.
Oh, I didn't know.
I was like, so like that was like kind of a disadvantage for like 2 months. I didn't like really know what was going on. It was just most talking, and I can't hear what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
So that would be one, and then I feel like social. I feel like a lot of people lost their social aspect. Like I feel like a lot of people forgot how to interact with one another. So like when we did go back in person, it was kind of like the classrooms were really quiet. And usually like people would have like a lot to say, like the prof was talking, and there was like more so like the prof asked the question, everybody's just sitting there like, oh, I forgot how to socialize.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like because I went into my degree program, it was a whole different school, and it was online for like the first year. And I had friends from like my diploma program who joined me, but I didn't know anyone else. So like I had these group projects, but like they were all just a name and that's it. And like seeing them in person, I was like, should I say hi to them? Like should I interact with them? Like I had no idea what to do, and it was like such a weird feeling, because like especially when you're growing up in high school and middle school, it's like everyone knows everyone, and then you get into college and that gets a bit less. But I felt like it was so much less when it came to the pandemic. And now it's like, even now it's like no one, like it's like not everyone knows everyone, and it's like sometimes you have no idea like how to interact, especially when it comes to like a classroom setting. So like when you're in a group project and you kind of know the person, you're like, oh yeah, like this is how we know each other, and it's just so weird. And I was like, all these like new experiences have come out because of like the pandemic. But yeah, I think the biggest disadvantage would definitely be focus, would be my mental health, would be like I have to like wait for a prof to like email me to get an answer on something, and sometimes profs are not good with that. They don't email you right away, or they don't email you in a week or 2.
Not at all.
And I'm like sitting here like, what am I supposed to be doing?
You have to figure it out for yourself. Like, this sounds right.
Exactly. So it's like especially because like grades are like something that like everyone finds so important in school. Like I think the learning aspect of it, like that's a whole different discussion, but like grades are like something everyone wants a higher grade. So if that gets affected in any way, you're just like, oh, I have no idea what to do right now. And I feel like that barrier was there. Even the profs, I feel, did try really hard to accommodate, to accumulate to this whole COVID-19 and the pandemic and us staying at home. I think it was a very tricky situation, but do you have any like final thoughts on mental health and COVID, isolation, being in school?
I did like my profs this year, some of them that were online. They did take a lot of our feedback in from the prior years and asking what could they do that would benefit us, knowing that we were like online prior years and we chose this class. We chose this class because we like online, and now it's not a choice. So you chose this for a reason.
Yeah.
So they were asking like, what could they do that could help us? If they did want to do hybrid, or like even like in 2021, classes were online for the majority of the year, and then they turned back to in person. So my profs also asked like, did they want us to do exams in person, or did they want to keep them online, or would we prefer like essay? Like, how do we want to do that? Like, what would benefit us because we're just coming back in person.
That's amazing. I feel like when you get feedback from people who have actually gone through it, I think that's such a good idea, because even now, like, I had my first in-person exam like I think last year, and that was like so wild to me, and I was like, this feels so different and odd, but I was like I would prefer an online exam, and it's not to cheat or anything like that, but it's just like the comfort of your own home, and like not like, I feel like when you're commuting, it's like you're studying on the train and like you're studying on the bus, and you're just like, I feel like the nerves like get up to it, and I feel like it's a lot easier to be at home. So I think that's like one thing that I wonder how they're gonna like fix around. Like that feedback thing is so amazing though. I wish like all like universities and colleges do that, because like we are all like learning from something that's completely different, and I feel like we all need to adjust to like a new world now, especially when it comes to school. So it was so nice talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.